This is Rhea, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more.
Okay, I'm just an ordinary Demi guy.
Fun fact, I actually had that song in my head for weeks. And like every time somebody would say you're welcome, I would just start
Yeah,
singing that song.
yep, yep. I was just
Oh
doing
gosh.
I was doing it based purely on the fact that you said who wouldn't. So I'm just like every time I think of like having any form of self-confidence, I think of that song. Like just like a little like arrogance and like a little bit of like, confidence slash like arrogance and like not narcissism, not
I
that.
get it.
Yeah.
A little conceitedness, a little
Ego,
ego,
definitely
yeah. Yeah.
ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you should. So, welcome back. And I feel like it's been a while.
Hmm.
And the last time we talked, I talked with you and a few people about, hey, let's, set up like monthly recordings with four people all together, including you, and haven't done that since like November, probably November or December, and it is now February. Um,
Well, well, to be fair, we've had 3 years in the past month, so it's okay.
oh shit.
I know, right?
I mean,
Like every time I see that's only February 5th, I'm like, huh?
February, January was a long year,
It
and
really was.
this week has been a long month already. So I'm glad to know it's not just me though, 'cause boy. But I'm happy to see you again. I haven't really interacted with the outside world in probably since right after Christmas, to be honest.
I haven't interacted it for a whole year and a half.
Well, these are for dairy different reasons.
Mm.
Yeah, dairy different reasons.
Hmm. That makes so much sense. Dairy, yep, dairy,
Dairy,
dairy.
dairy different reasons.
I mean, I English is my second language. What's your excuse?
I don't know what the fuck it is, but I swear the last 2 weeks to probably three, I can't talk for shit. I've been doing a lot of reading, and apparently I am illiterate because the amount of words
Just
that I
making
have
you
fucked
dumber
up.
instead of smarter.
Yeah.
By the way, this is to anybody who's listening and for you. A great book to read is Buddha in a Borderline. Such a good book. If you want to know more about BPD and also DBT, and this is a book about this woman's experience with BPD in the late 1900s up to early 2000s. So this is when it was still a new thing. And it was a very stigmatized, very, very stigmatized, as much as it is now, to be honest. Maybe a little bit more back then, but
Yeah.
it's such a good book. There might be a little bit, little bit triggering. I don't think it was, but it could be a little triggering to those who struggle with mental health. But me personally, it was triggering, but it could.
Okay. I'll put that. Where is it available on Amazon or anything anywhere
And,
specific?
Amazon Audio, any
Okay.
place you can get a book.
Okay.
It's likely they'll have it. I read mine on Apple, so.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of books, um, I started yesterday recording my autobiography, like just reading it out loud.
Hmm.
So it's something that I had planned to do. I planned to do it on TikTok, but I deleted TikTok when it was, banned for that 4 hours, and now I don't know how to get it back. So,
I think it's off the Apple Store still, so good luck with that.
yeah, wait. So I haven't tried to download it on my work phone because, well, I only have work stuff on here. But so, like, if you've never had it, can you download it, or you can't download it in the United States at all?
Right now, you still can't download it. A lot of people have deleted it thinking that, and now they can't get it back on because they still removed. it from the App Store. They still haven't gotten it back on the App Store because it's only a 90-day thing. Like,
Mm.
until whatever. So I don't think they
Okay.
put it back on the App Store yet because they don't know if it's what the 90-day thing is going to do. So,
Okay, yeah. Well, that was my initial plan months ago. I think it was around maybe Christmas time. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start reading my book. I'm gonna put it, and I'm gonna put it on TikTok, and not because I want to like. You've seen people like Balin out loud. She has her own show now, which I think is phenomenal because it really gives the world insight on into people with Tourette's
mhm.
and other OCD and other things. So I think it's phenomenal. But I don't want to do that. But I know specifically with TikTok, a lot of people are able to get their voice out there through that app. So that was kind of like, okay, well, I want to read it, get my book put out there through the app. That was my initial like plan. But then I deleted it. So here we are. But
Did Reels, Instagram.
that's what I'm gonna do Instagram. I'm gonna put it on YouTube. I I also went live on Podbean.
Mhm.
Ironically, I went live and then I stayed on live for about 30 minutes when I wasn't even in the room because I forgot I was live. So that
Such a millennial thing to do.
I'm like, I forgot I was on live. And because it's Podbean, so it's not like TikTok or Instagram or anything where there's like hundreds of people. It was like one guy in the room. And forgot I was on. I ran to
I'm
Starbucks. I
judging
came
so
back.
hard. I'm judging you so much right now.
I was like, oh shit, I'm still alive. They're just looking at this for 30 minutes. It's fine.
Just watch the clock. Just
And I'm
like
gonna leave it that way too.
That's hilarious. That's funny.
Yeah. So that's been my day. You
Uh,
know. How about yours?
oh, my day is full of therapy and school, and that's about it. The journey with agoraphobia is a motherfucking bitch. It
Yeah.
is. It is. It's one. I feel like it's one of those. I mean, I know a lot of mental health is silent, but I mean, it's another silent one, and it's. I feel like agoraphobia is such an overlooked disorder, such a freaking
Yeah.
overlooked disorder, and I hate it when people are like, "Oh, you're so lucky, you get to stay home," and I'm like, "Dude, I would give anything to be able to do what you're doing right now, like anything."
Right. Well, because most people, we want what we don't have. And so if you're overweight, you want to be thin. If you're too thin, you wish you could gain weight. If you have a fear of the outside world, you want to be out there. And if you have a panic disorder in the outside world, you want to be at home. And we always kind of, yeah, a lot of times we want what we don't have. So yeah, people do that.
Well,
Oh, you're
what's
lucky.
is that I had it and then it got lost. It's
So,
not even that I never had it. Whereas like if you're
right.
skinny, you were always skinny. If you were thick, you're always thick, for the most part,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if
I've always been thick.
exactly, like for the most part, you most of the time have kept the body that you've had, or you didn't have parents. Well, most you haven't had parents for a long time. You know what I mean? It's like
Right, right. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
and I and so it's like hard. Like the thing about it is, some people technically could make fun of me for it. I don't think anybody has, but they could. And I was just like, oh, this could be you in
Keep
a
them up.
couple days. I mean, this could be you in a month or two.
Yeah,
It's just like if you make fun of a disabled person, it's like, well, they were fine at your age or whatever. It's
right,
karma is a real bitch. You sure you want to be making fun of that shit or judging it?
right. Yeah,
Like, I mean, that could be you, and then will you be laughing then?
right,
And
right.
there was actually a quote I saw not too long ago. It was on a page I follow on Reels, and it said that I believe it said something like, I believe that it's
I
worse.
can fly.
It it says that exactly. I know it said that I believe it's worse to have parents and not let them parent and being an orphan. And I was like, the stupidity that just came out of that sentence. like, I understand that, having parents, but them not being parents at the same time is it's not good. And it's,
Yeah.
very distant. But I was just thinking about my story and I was like, what the fuck do you mean? What the fuck do you mean? Because the thing about it is, at least they kept you, right? And then they're also, and then also they maybe still don't want to be your parent or whatever, but they still kept you. Whereas like I was a baby and like I was the weakest time and the cutest. I don't know, maybe I was an ugly baby. Who the fuck knows? But like, when a parent is more likely to keep you than if you were.
Right, because that's typically when people make those decisions is right after birth.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like, and I know my story's a little different than that, but I was still an orphan, like it was still
Right.
an orphan. How it
Well,
came
it's
to
still your story. It's still your story and it still deserves to be told.
right, yeah, but no, I just when I heard that, when I saw that, I was like, I have to disagree with you on this one. This is bullshit. Like, what the fuck? You're saying that having parents but being somewhat neglected by them is worse than being an orphan? Like,
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and only to a certain extent because I wasn't adopted. Um, so my perspective in this is it's just purely psychological and off of no life experience. But I can understand kind of where they're coming from being in their situation as someone who my father was an alcoholic, an addict, and my mom left him, right? He also had an affair and other things, and she left him. And at one point, I was pissed because, well, he should have. I wanted him to be in my life, and I wanted him to fucking parent me, right? But as I got older, I realized, like, oh, I'm glad that I didn't grow up in the house with him, and he wasn't allowed to be that parent for me because I would have been more fucked up than I already am.
mm,
So like I
what
can
is that?
kind of huh?
I was just gonna ask, like, what's the connection of that? Like, with the.
Okay, so what they said, right, was like they would rather that parent be allowed to parent them as a bad parent than an orphan. Is that what you're saying? Oh
No,
no.
I'm saying that basically what they were saying in that quote was that their parents kind of was neglecting them a little bit. Like,
Oh,
neglect.
so like being a bad parent. Oh, okay. So being a bad parent was more neglect than being put up for adoption.
Yes, like being an orphan.
I don't, I'm not saying I agree, but I do understand how they could have that perspective.
I guess
In
my question would be that technically you're neglected either way. So, like, I really
100%,
like,
100%. Yeah,
why would they think that's worse than not having the parent at all?
I'll tell
Like,
you why. Because they weren't an orphan. So it's easy to have that perspective when you haven't been in that situation. You know what I'm saying?
well, yes, but then at that point they're talking out their ass then because they're not their basic while they are speaking from their point of view, they didn't say it, I believe, or whatever. They just said
True.
as if
This
it
is
was
factual.
fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was
Okay. Yeah.
like, because I may have quoted it like it said, I believe, but that's not how it is. Because when I read it, I'm like, why is this stated like it's a fact?
Right.
And I'm
But you
like,
don't know that fact because you haven't been in both situations. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't think I don't. To be fair, I don't even know if I was in both situations. It's very kind of wonky with me because I was, I was an orphan, but I was also in an orphanage that neglected me for 5 years.
Well, and you also knew your mother, and she was in your life to neglect you. So
I kind of
you
had
can kind of speak from both perspectives. Yeah,
Yeah, so I don't know, like I don't I it's such a confusing thing to say because I'm like. I don't know because I don't know because I mean there's been times when I have mourned the loss of what could have been. And even if she was a neglectful mother, at least I was with her. I don't, it's confusing. It's
But
confusing.
isn't that kind of what they're saying though? Even though my parents were neglectful, at least they didn't give me up, is kind of what it sounds like they're saying. So it sounds like you kind of can understand that as well.
I don't
Although
know.
your mom gave you up, but she was still in your life and neglected you. So you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
This is just me just trying to
No,
paint a little picture.
I'm trying to think about what you're saying because it's not processing quick enough, I'm
Yeah,
trying to, because the thing about it is like you said, I have all three kind of different experiences in one.
right, right.
And it's
Yeah,
just trying to understand, while I understand where this person is coming from to an extent,
right,
I like, why the fuck are you speaking as a fact? That pissed me off more
right. That's a fair
than
point. Yeah,
just like saying that I believe, or in my eyes or in my mind. It's like
in my
putting a
opinion.
stick in, as in like it was a fact.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I don't understand.
yeah.
Because like, and then people in the comments were like, absolutely, I'm like, all right then. Like,
It's
and I
because
also do in the comment that I put, I'm like, I absolutely think that both situations are terrible and that
yeah,
they are equally as hurting or whatever. And this is, but stating it like the way they stated it was bullshit. Like, it was no, like it basically just, I felt like it was very invalidating for people who have like been adopted. And
no,
listen.
you know what's funny? So talking about lesbians and stuff. So I started reading my book, as I said earlier, and I was reading a chapter called Disruptive Behaviors, Chapter 3. It's available on my website. And and I'm talking in this chapter about how I used to be homophobic.
Mm-hmm.
And like, because when I was growing up, I wasn't really raised. It makes me feel so
You
old.
weren't exposed to
I
it.
wasn't exposed to it.
Yeah.
And like my both sides of my family was very like churchy to an extent, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean by
Yep.
that, like churchy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they were homophobic. And so I'm reading this book. Now, mind you, I started writing this book 10 years ago. And so I'm a very different person than I was 10 years ago, obviously, as one should be in their, the
Hopefully.
right, as one should be 10 years later, right? But so I'm reading it and I'm like talking about this one experience where like
If your
I
looks change over time, then so should you.
yeah.
Okay, continue. Sorry.
So I'm talking about how, I wasn't raised, I wasn't exposed to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And which is crazy because I'm talking about me. I was a very promiscuous teenager. I was very like I was a pothead. I was like ghetto as fuck. And I'm over here like, well, I wasn't exposed to certain things. Like certain things were okay, but it's not sexuality. Let's not go
Mm-hmm.
there. Um, and I had this kind of like awakening when I met the first two people in the LGBTQ plus community that I had ever met, and how they completely like changed my perception of people. Because me at 20,
Oh, hold on. Give me one moment. Sorry, I have a call to make. So I am actually thinking about going into residential
okay,
with agoraphobia, so that because then I feel like I will be in a big place to do a lot of exposure, but around trained people. And it would be like exposure in multiple ways at the same time, like being around people, eating in front of people, taking medication, exploring the place, like it's going to be a lot of big things happening at the same time. And I will be around people that can really help guide me. It's like a halfway house for people who get out of prison, it's like trying to
Yeah.
reintegrate back into society. And
Yeah.
and if I can find the right med management while I'm there, and also be in a secure place and nothing too extravagant, but it's like I can get used to being in a place like that, and then after that, do more exposure when I get back, and hopefully also be on the right medication to where I'm not panicking every time I leave my apartment. So, yeah.
Um, do you want to talk maybe a little bit about your journey with agoraphobia? Because I know you, and it hasn't always been something that's been a
Hmm.
factor in your daily life.
Hmm.
When I met you, obviously we worked together, so you were out in the world, and I know if you're comfortable talking about it, because I also don't want to trigger anything.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think I think it all started when I was in the orphanage, honestly. I mean, and the reason why I say that is because it's events that led up to this moment, Like when I started talking about with my therapist and stuff, I realized that all these events were always going to land me here. Like in the orphanage, it was a time of when we couldn't go outside because it was dangerous, like, guns or whatever. It was a time when we weren't allowed to be out there, out in
Yeah,
the park or whatever, because I remember hearing shit, from outside the
right,
orphanage, and then trauma, this is more, I consider this little T trauma compared to what I've been through because there's big T and little T trauma, and the little T trauma is like, when I went on vacation and stuff and my sister would throw fits, all I wanted to do was go home and I'd have the control to go back home,
right,
my safe space. And then the trauma that I experienced in my teenage years, in that one late teenage thing that happened when I was 18, 19. I always forget what the age was, but like
yeah,
when it was 19 because it was right before I moved into this. Yes, it was 19. So, um, that happened, and after that trauma it was hard for me to be in cars. Like it took a while for that trauma to even process, for me to feel that. So for the longest time I didn't think much of it. I wasn't ready to deal with it. I just ignored it, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of was repressed sort of type of thing, my body wasn't even handling it. It just was like, okay, and I'm just numbed out, right? And then COVID struck and it came. It wasn't that I was afraid of COVID at all. You know me, I've got it so many times. Like I didn't give a shit about sickness.
right,
Like
right.
sickness did. I honestly thought COVID was the most exaggerated piece of shit in the world. But anywho, sorry, that's just my view on it. I'm
No,
not.
but it's funny because I remember at one point you were so like, you were very careful and very serious about it.
Mhm.
And so to hear you say that now, it's just funny but I get it. I feel like a lot of people went through that, like, oh my God. And they're like, okay, I fucking got COVID. I felt like I was gonna die, but then I got through it. And then the other couple of times I had it,
It
I
was
was
just like the
fine.
flu. Who
Right,
gave a shit?
right, right, right.
Anywho, any. But like even back then, even though I was serious about it, I wasn't like really caring about it. You know what I mean? Like I still think it was just a flu. And
Yeah,
I still thought that it was an exaggeration not to leave or whatever. But I digress. But so then that happening, my body got used to being in an apartment. I have OCD. So I created new patterns here in
right,
my apartment
right.
and so then of course COVID was getting slower, whatever. People are becoming more used to it. Like, all right, like how I thought it was gonna end. Like, I mean, what the fuck did you whatever.
Right.
And it feels like it feels like when an overthinker's overthinking, it's like, oh, first I just need to overthink this first, even though I know everything's gonna be fine.
I do. My husband hates it. I do the same thing. He's
Yeah.
just like, oh, I'm just gonna let you have your little process, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
it's like, or it's like I got panic first or whatever, you know,
Right,
like
right,
everything's gonna be fine, but let me panic first, you know. Like,
right, right. Yes.
um, so, so it's like, so that played a role into it. Then after COVID, like everything became more normal. I was going outside normally, but then
Yeah,
my body started to want to process the Uber thing, and then my body wanted to process, you know, oh shit, I'm not at the apartment. What's going on? So I just started to constantly have anxiety attacks going to work at Lincoln Pen. Um, I started to have constant anxiety attacks there. Just one right after the other. And then it would transfer me, like while I'm trying to drive back, I'm anxious even more because I'm in the car. And so,
yeah,
like, it got so overwhelming and it just started to just push back each little time each day. And it was a slow thing process,
yeah,
but once it hit, it hit.
yeah.
Like, you know, and the way everything just kind of explodes in your face, I guess. You know what I mean?
And
And
not
it's
in a fun way.
exact. But yeah, so you know what I mean, though. It's just like my body was like ready to deal with this shit, but my mentality wasn't.
Hmm. Your
And
body was your brain, wasn't?
exactly, because
Yeah.
usually when you have anxiety attacks like that, causing of all this shit, right?
Hmm.
That that usually, you know, means your body's ready to do something about it, you know? But like it just made me go into a little hole instead of facing it
Hmm.
because it was the way my body was reacting to it was too much for my mentality to handle. Like you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If that
yeah,
makes sense. Body
yeah,
reaction or body flashbacks were too much for my mentality to handle, I
yeah,
guess. That's
yeah.
how I view it at least. Um,
Hmm.
and then over time, it just came to where I was housebound like I am now. And it's hard for people to understand that. Usually when I tell them what happened to me when I was 19, they have a better, more understanding of it. But
Right.
like my parents currently don't even know about that. And I don't want them to know. I'm not ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's and it's just like and it's just like I feel like they would understand more if I told them. I just am not ready to, you know, because
yeah,
like
yeah,
they're gonna want to be parents, you know, maybe try to find or try to help, you know, or maybe ask for too much detail that I'm not ready to give or
yeah,
whatever. And I just I've only even gone through it. I've only gone through the situation like twice, and one was my mentor after like it sort of happened, and then the other one was my therapist. I've only gone through that event twice, and that's with these two people. My therapist was not too long ago.
yeah.
Like, it's not an event that it's just too much, too, not too real. The word is like it's too close to time right now, you know, whereas everything else that's happened to me, years past and you know, and I can make jokes about it. It's like, you know, but for some
Yeah.
reason that one just I don't know, just it's just too serious. I guess in my mind, I don't know. Like,
Well, I mean, like you said, like y- you're still processing it, and sometimes that happens. It
mhm.
it wants to be like, well, so I literally recently had this conversation with my therapist. It happened so long ago. Why does it shouldn't, I shouldn't still be dwelling on it. However, he explained to me, you've never worked through it.
Yeah,
Talked
exactly.
about it, you've moved over it, but you've never worked straight through it. And until you do that, it is going to weigh you down. And he
Right.
was not wrong. I
Yeah.
went through two childhood incidences with him
Mhm.
that, like, I know they happened, and I feel like I should have gotten the fuck over it by now. And I went through them with him,
Mhm.
and it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. It doesn't
Right.
bog me. Those don't bog me down anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like when I started to see my current one of my current therapists now, and she was like, "You're telling me all this shit." And I'm like, "But you're saying it so factually
Yeah,
and so much distance or even joking about when you even feel slightly remote any emotion towards it,
Yeah.
that it's like you're like telling me as if it was from a third person point of view and in a very
Right.
dissociated way, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but at least I'm funny. Like, I mean, but I mean, I think there's some things I have worked on with her, showing emotion with it. But one thing that she would tell you is that my emotion, like, is weird because also I have BPD and bipolar. Like, I mean, like, it's a lot because my emotion can go from 0 to 100 real fucking quick. And it's usually on something not like trauma. It's usually on like somebody didn't show up on time or this,
Yeah.
like, smallest little thing.
Yeah.
And 0 to 100. But I mean, I guess you could say I'm zero with the trauma, I guess, not like maybe 100. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
but there's also underlying factors for things. When you've been abandoned by someone, the slightest feeling of abandonment, even someone missing an appointment,
hmm.
could feel like they're abandoning you.
Right, and that's one thing I think people don't understand, or it's not a looked thing. But one thing that's the hugest difference between bipolar and BPD is one has to do with relationships, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like BPD shows up the most in relationships.
Yeah.
Like the symptoms of it, fear of abandonment, testing people, all this type of stuff. It's more of a relationship disorder, in my opinion, whereas bipolar, I feel like it's more of just a fluctuation between your moods just because of life. You know what I
Right.
mean?
That makes
Like,
sense.
to
Yeah.
life events, whereas BPD is with life events too, but it's more centered around relationships, in my opinion. Like, it's hard to keep up a relationship because of it. There's so many. There's more difference between BPD and bipolar than more people think. I
So
mean,
let me ask you this question.
yeah. And also, people don't realize that if you have BPD and bipolar, because I was talking to my psychiatrist about it, and I told her, like I've heard the people with bipolar, they can have a mania episodes once every couple years, And I asked her, why the fuck is mine so often? She's like, because you have BPD too. Like,
Right. Right.
drive each other. You know,
Right. Yeah.
they increase each other sort of. At least for me it does.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like it's more common for me to have these depressive episodes or these mania episodes because they drive each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
With in your experience, and this question I'm asking because I currently have a family member who is,
Exhibiting those traits.
well, possibly. They are currently in behavioral health. They are staying there, living there for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a couple weeks, and so there's, conversations being had about long-term options, both inpatient and eventually outpatient, but uh, there are components that make it kind of unsafe for that person to be back in their household.
Oh, okay.
And so there's conversations being had about, inpatient
Mm-hmm.
care outside of behavioral health.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In your experience as an, I don't want to put too much information out there.
No, I get what you're saying. I'm just gonna say this part as a person myself, because I have so I'm gonna say in my experience, I'm gonna just mention this because it's me, but
Yeah,
like, how I was adopted, right?
right.
So there were times when I really wanted to hurt the people in my life, my
Hmm.
parents. I thought about ways I would do it. I it was a strong urge for me. And I still struggle with it, but in a different way now. So there's this thing called harm OCD. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Mm-mm.
So harm OCD is when you have these intrusive thoughts and these urges to hurt the people around you or this or that, but you have no intention of doing it. Like it's
Hold on. So I have a family member who has been in a place for the last couple weeks, and the focus is on long-term treatment.
Hmm.
They're still pretty young. We're really the focus is really on like the next 4 years through
Right.
a certain point of their teenage years, right? So, but they have some pretty intense physical behaviors that have been being displayed. So my question to you is, as a child and going into your teenager years and a young adult, as someone with BPD, what has your experience kind of been like with um, like violence, aggression? Uh, this person seems to be able to navigate their violence and their aggression and control when they display it, when they don't. They can articulate that things are wrong, bad, they shouldn't do them, why they hurt other people, why they're wrong, etc., and so on. Can very well articulate all that stuff. Are very well behaved when they're monitored, but the second the eyes aren't on them, they are completely feral.
I think that they give you a false sense of control. That they think that they give you a false sense that they have control over it because they don't.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
don't. I can tell you that right now, they do not have control over it because I've
So
had.
even though like they choose when to do certain things and when not to.
Okay, let me explain it this way. When you have a balloon that's filled up and you cut off one part of it, it's going to go to another side.
Hmm.
Like that hole is going to go to another side. That air has to go somewhere.
Hmm.
So even though they might be able to suppress it, it's still gonna go out somewhere else. It's
Hmm.
gonna come out. It's gonna come out one way or another. It's just what they're trying to do in that moment is they're trying to suppress it, not control it, suppress it. There's a difference. And what I mean by that, okay, I'm gonna give you an example. When I was in my early teenage years, there was this coach I had at a tennis court, okay? He was a great dude. He did nothing wrong. I think all he did was wrong was being a male. I think that's what really probably triggered me, honestly.
I mean,
The
as he should be.
exact
Kidding.
the fact
I'm
that
kidding.
he was probably a male was probably what really got, but I had this anger and aggression. So I started threatening him. I started saying shit. This is the first time I even met this dude. And it just got, I felt so bad for the dude because after that, and he talked to my parents and everything, he and I became good, like not friends, but you know what I mean. He and
Yeah.
I started to have a good connection. But it was like, I feel like in that moment, my feelings went from 0 to 100 real quick. I don't know what he did or what went through me, but something happened. Something flipped a switch in my mind. And like, I felt like I had to defend and I had to threaten. I had to stand my ground.
Hmm.
And this wasn't an authority figure and a man 10 times as big as me at that time. Like, but
Yeah.
it came out. It wasn't in front of my parents. When my parents got there, I was like, okay. Because it got out.
Right.
It
Right.
got out though. That's
Well,
the
this person also doesn't do things like that around male adults.
mhm.
It's women, kids, siblings, not around their parents and not around like male
I
authority.
had the same problem, but it was with the men and I was shut down with the women.
Uh-huh.
So like I could raise my voice at men. I could threaten them. My siblings, same thing. Like all this type of stuff. I could do this stuff. But
Hmm.
it was like with a woman, I cannot get away with it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like for me, that's that my
Yeah.
was reversed. Like
Yeah.
mine was like it was a woman authority figure that put me in my place, Like I mean, but the thing about it is with me, the emotions get so big and so scary that it's like I need a release for it. And I don't feel like I can be myself around another person. So I
Hmm.
must lock up this. And then also, I will say there's also such thing as quiet BPD.
Hmm.
There is subtypes of BPD. There's perpetulant, there is quiet, there is self-destructive, and there's one more. I just forgot the name of it. I don't know. Meldapt. No, it's not that one. Whatever. It's another BPD thing. But the thing about it, I have quiet BPD, so I split internally. So like I have this split inside me. Like for what? Like let's say you're my favorite person, right? And I put you on a pedestal. Like you say one nice thing to me or whatever, you're like the highest person on. Like I would choose you over anybody in the whole world, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
You do something wrong or what I perceive is wrong, or it could be the smallest thing. You are the most hated person in a heartbeat. I'm sorry, but like it's just like it has that split of like, oh, okay, you're awesome. Now fuck you. You're awesome. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Like it's a constant roller coaster. And then also BPD is not fun for the person either. You know what I mean? Because it could also be that the person you're talking about could also feel threatened. And that can also cause shifts. You know what I mean? Uh that like I said, that guy at the tennis court, I don't know what the fuck he did. I don't even think he did anything, honestly, if I remember correctly. I don't think he even did anything. But something happened. Whatever happened, it causes that flip, that switch, the like, okay, now I have to go into attack mode. I have to show dominance. And
Yeah. Yeah.
this is how I can show a dominance. It's with threatening or all this type of stuff, you know? And oh, teenage years was not good, especially with hormones and raging like oh, see, when you have BPD and bipolar going at the same time, adding hormones with that, hoo hoo hoo.
Oh,
Oh,
I bet.
no, no, no. Just like it was hell for my parents and it was hell for me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine.
person demonstrated any aggression towards themselves or uh have any form of suicidality of that you know of.
Um,
And before you say that they might be too young, trust me, I had it very young. So
no, it's not that. It's that this person was recently asked that question and they said yes, but this person also says most, like a large portion of the time, especially depending on who's around, they will say things just to get a reaction out of people. They very commonly like to upset people. And
they've
they,
also have ADHD.
yeah, they do have ADHD. Yeah.
Yeah, because
They
the defiance and also looking for a reaction out of people. Oh, that was a big thing I used to do.
oh,
I
yeah,
I
very big.
still kind of do it. When I make the dark humor jokes, that's me looking for a reaction out of somebody. And
Mm,
it's
makes
more of like
sense.
I'm looking for a funny reaction, maybe not the reaction this person's looking for.
This person likes, they like the reaction of
Like, are you okay? Like,
upsetting. They like to upset people.
mm,
They like a reaction of being hurt or upset.
wait, of the other person being hurt or upset or him?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so because the thing about it is when I was younger, I used to love that reaction from my parents. Not really anybody else, but
Yeah.
from my parents, yeah, I love
Was
to
it
just
more of like a like feel bad for me, give me attention, or like I just want to piss you off?
it depends on the situation, I think, honestly, because
Yeah.
most of the time it was just purely just to piss them off because I was
I mean,
bored.
I like to piss my mom off when I was little, when I was younger. But like this
To see
person
where the
is
boundary is with the parent, like it's
right.
what every child does to see where the boundary of the parent is and
Yeah. Yeah.
test him. You know how many times I asked my mom why, just to see how long I could do it before it pissed her off.
Yeah.
Like, but yes, there has been times when I felt like the only way I could get attention was through pity. Like that the only way that I would be able to gain someone's love or attention was through pity or through through um through worry or whatever, you know. Not let me rephrase that. Not worry actually, because I didn't like it when people worried. It was more of just enough that I would get attention but not enough to where they were like extremely worried about me. Because if they were extremely worried about me, then I know I've crossed the line, you know, because then
Right.
you don't
Right.
know what they're going to do with that worry, you know. So
Yeah.
I do enough to where they would care about me and show me they care about me and get that reassurance without asking for that reassurance.
Hmm.
And I had to make sure it didn't go too far.
But that makes sense to me as someone who has consciously experienced abandonment in in two separate occasions as a very young child.
Mhm.
You know, like
Let me go and say this. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this already. I almost ah the person you are talking about has two.
Not twice,
Not twice, but doesn't have to be twice. It only takes once.
but they were only a few months old.
It
And I
doesn't
know, like,
matter.
I know physically that doesn't, I know physically, like, I understand it. I do. I really do. But I look at people like experiences like you've had in life, and I'm like, oh, I understand that. I understand why you, as this person with these experiences, are this way and have these thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And I know it might sound a little mean, but this person in particular, knowing how I know them, I don't feel that way about them. Like, and the type of
You
life
sound
this
like my
person
mom.
has, huh?
You sound like my mom a little bit.
What
There's
do
a
you mean?
reason why I say that. My adopted mom. You sound like her a little bit, where because she knew how I was a very manipulative, lying son of a bitch growing up. I am not hiding that fact. I
Yeah,
used to constantly lie, manipulate, and she had that exact thought about me.
but
Where
I don't feel that way about you
I
because,
know you don't because I've grown a lot. I don't lie, manipulate. I don't do any of that shit anymore.
but even as a child, I could understand why you did the things that you did. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like, I don't see that in this person. I I know the type of life this person has, which is the only life this person's ever known. This person doesn't remember. Now, physically, chemically, they've experienced it, right?
right.
But this person is a
Yeah, but they still have
5-year-old,
somewhere
like,
they still have some form of conscience that they were abandoned.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And
yeah,
that does fit to a person whether you were adopted right at birth or adopted 5 years later like I was, you know, that still does something to a person. That
yeah,
still fucks with their head. That still creates reactive attachment disorder. That can
yeah.
still create BPD. That can still do so much shit to a person's psyche. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be as extensive my past was because I think in a sense that like my story and other people's stories has desensitized like
Maybe like
your
more quote
empathy.
unquote
Your
minor.
no, yeah, exactly. Like I think it's hindering your empathy for this person's, and that's not a bad thing because my empathy is hindered so much because of what I've been through. And so when
Yeah,
somebody tells me something, most of the time it's going to come off as like I don't care, or I'll
yeah,
give you such a logical answer. You'll be like, do you care at all? And I'm like, I do care. It's just that to me, this is not a problem or a huge problem. And it's not me being an asshole. It's just I have become so desensitized to other things that aren't not as big as what I've been through. So to me, it's like, okay, and you know,
right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
it sounds like I don't know. That's just kind of like what's coming off like towards me is that
Yeah.
maybe how well do you validate this person's experiences?
Um, I will say that their experience is validated very often, and it has been their whole entire life.
Hmm. And I'm not saying like validate, oh, I just stubbed my toe, like you know,
No,
yeah.
yeah, the family has been very from the very beginning of this whole process, very supportive, communicated a lot. They've been very validating of the life experience this person has had.
Mhm.
Um, and even so to the point of like those of us on the kind of inside of the life experience with this person
Mm.
have even kind of like brushed it off. A lot of things brushed off because, well,
Has this
it's
has,
just this person just
has
this
this person like exhibited any interest in like the biological or no? Just
absolutely not. They actually have told me that I don't care anything about this person. Like I don't like them. They
okay.
they made a bad choice because they aren't a great person and I don't want anything to do with them. Because that those options have been presented to them by their family, the
I don't
family.
think it's BP. Oh, sorry. I don't think they have BPD.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I say that.
Uh-huh.
I think they need to get tested for bipolar.
I thought I used to think that about this completely separate, because they don't have like it's not like one of my kids who I could pass this down to. So it's relevant, but it's not like my father was diagnosed bipolar, and my mom had my mom never really presented it to me because she didn't want to offend me. But as I go older in life, I thought about it myself, but then I learned a little bit more about it, and I was like, I don't think
All right.
so. So
All
I
right.
wouldn't
The reason, I guess the
know
reason why
firsthand, like,
the reason why I say it is if this person doesn't really have much interest in the biological world and has not experienced if he has been if they have been sheltered as much as you have said they have been sheltered, I
Mhm.
don't see it as BPD. I would see it as more bipolar because it sounds like it's a chemical reaction, which is
Right.
great. And the reason why
Right.
is because it's treated with medication, no problem.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's I mean, you put them on a good medication and they are decently more stabilized.
Yeah.
And I mean, the reason why I say it's a good thing because BPD is like more about self workings and like things about that, whereas like bipolar is more just take this pill and it'll like make you smile again. Not maybe like that, but you know what I mean? It's more because
I get what you say. It's more chemical than external.
yes, that
Yeah.
because BPD, I believe, is a very external thing. It's a very, and there has been more recent studies that BPD can be passed down, but honestly, it's such a loose theory that I don't believe it. It is, I believe that BPD is more of an external, like it's like
Right.
nature versus nurture, basically. Whereas like nature is BPD and nurture, or wait, which one's which? I forget it. They confuse me. Nature versus nurture, but
Yeah.
like I feel like
Well,
BPD is one and bipolar is the other.
yeah. I will say I have considered that RAD, ODD are things that the family has talked about. And then sociopathy is another one that has been kind of talked about recently because of certain harming animals, uh, death threats, certain very narcissistic traits that they have as well.
I
And
I would fight back on that one because if this person did have sociopathic tendencies, they wouldn't be careful who they did in front of. They wouldn't care.
oh, that's true.
They
But well,
would
no,
they
because people like serial killers don't kill in front of people. You know what I mean?
oh,
Like,
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying usually with that, they wouldn't how do I explain this? I feel like they wouldn't have the care to like they would have care enough to
Antonio was
mask
called
in
a very
front of
charismatic man. That's all I'm
they
saying.
they have they have they have self-awareness to what they can do in front of each person. That's
Yeah,
mask. Yes, you're right. They
right.
can mask. They can mask. You're right.
Yeah,
I would think because the thing about it is I used to think that I had sociopathic like things, you know what I mean, about me, because there would I don't have much empathy towards people. I don't have, but does not mean I'm a sociopath. You know what I mean?
right,
It just
right.
means that my level of empathy is very low.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I don't know, that's just how I maybe you could be right. You could be completely right. I just like usually sociopaths you can usually identify it because most of the time they're like what they're most of the time they do have a baseline of how they are around everybody. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, this person has also been described as very like everybody loves them. They're very charismatic. They're
Yep,
very
yeah, yeah. You know
yeah,
how good I am with fucking all that shit and how much my parents were like, but that is more of a BPD characteristic. See, I'm trying to diagnose this person. I'm like trying to figure it out because I'm like that. I don't have a distinct personality because I am who I am around these each person.
yeah.
And that's another
Yeah,
reason
I mean,
why
yeah.
because
And
I've had thoughts about harming animals and all this type of stuff, hurting people and all this type of stuff. And I would also put different masks on in front of different people. That's just like I don't have a distinct personality. I don't know who I am because it depends on who I'm in front of.
hmm,
Everything changes. So I think that's why it's hard for me to figure it out because it's like, but he also I don't know, you're confusing me because there's no distinct trauma. There's and usually
right,
and
right.
sociopathic is also based off trauma. It's not something you necessarily are born with. I mean, it can be, but it's very rare.
Yeah,
And so is psychopath. That's very rare to just be born with. It's usually built up through trauma. That's why it's more common in adopted people than it is
right.
with like, not normal, but you get what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so um I don't know how to explain it. Like it's just how it all is. And I don't know, I don't know, my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I just wanted to know your opinion just from someone with the specific diagnosis and you kind
Yeah,
of
but it
know.
confuses me because it's like he has a mixture of them. It's like it's not
Right.
one thing. It's not like he doesn't meet enough criteria to be one
It's
of them.
like
Yeah,
just
it's like
straight
it's like a
down.
couple
Yeah.
of each, and then it's like it's creating its own diagnosis of like, I don't know this
Right.
thing. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because because the thing
Right.
you're saying, like it's not even enough to diagnose one thing. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's only enough to just say, okay, he has this symptom and he has this symptom and he has this symptoms from this. And it's like,
Yeah.
which one, like, what is a
Yeah.
symptom of? But I will say, a lot of people say that BPD, bipolar, and ADHD very close to each other, a lot of things, like
Yeah. Well,
even
also,
in autism. Like, I mean,
yeah, also the family, certain components of our family have been like caught off guard by this.
mhm.
Even people who are very, very close to this person, like I don't see them do that. Like they aren't ever, I've never seen them act like that. But then you've got this whole slew of people around, some on the outside, some on the inside, who are like, yeah, we see it all the time. We
Yeah.
see this person with these traits. We see this person. That person doesn't need to be in the household for
Have
a
you
while.
given
This,
this
like,
person a good psych evaluation? Like, I know they can lie. I know, but usually if you have a really good psychiatrist, they can
yeah,
see through bullshit pretty quickly. Actually, let me interview them. I'd be great at catching that bullshit because I know all the tells of it. I
yeah.
know I gave them all. Like, I
What
mean,
about what about this thing? Like when they don't, when you say something that they don't agree with or they don't like, they're like,
yeah, I do
that's
that.
the
I still do that. I'm just like, I don't know. Like,
it's not so much like a confused thing. It's like a fucking bitch, like a.
Oh, I do that when I'm angry. Oh, you should ask my mom the death stares I gave her. I would do like
I
I
used to, I used to roll my eyes. My mom used to hate it so
no,
much.
I roll my eyes very rarely, only when they gave me lectures. But like if I was super angry, if looks could kill, my looks would have killed them by now. Like it was bad. Like the how badly I like the stare of like in my mind, I'm like, I'm hoping this stare will kill you. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Damn.
I have a lot of problems, okay? Why you're coming to me? You're welcome. I'm glad my fucked upness can help you. But yeah, I sincerely think I don't know. In my opinion, get tested for bipolar. In my opinion, I think the sociopathic is a stretch. I really do.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the thing
I
that
feel like you would have caught that a lot sooner than now if it was that, especially since this person has been around for a long, long time
if yeah, yeah,
before they could even mask anything. I
right.
feel like
But
you would be able to catch it pretty quickly before they learn that.
their whole life, they've enjoyed hurting animals their whole life.
I've
Is
enjoyed
kind of
I've enjoyed hurting things. I just don't go through with it because I do have some form
but
of
they
empathy.
do well,
I
that's
enjoy
one of the
it too.
things that's one of the things that if someone isn't around, they will. Now
Yeah.
they're if they know you're watching them, they're not going to do it. But
Right.
if they don't think you can see them,
Oh, I
they're
have
going
to
to do
go.
it.
My psychiatrist is
Oh,
waiting.
okay. All right.
I'll talk to you
Well,
later.
thanks for being here and see you later. Check us out on YouTube at Rhea Higgs, ReaHHagues. You can also keep up with us on Instagram at Just the Who Podcast.